You're gone.
Not gone. Unshackled.
Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
The film begins by introducing a dark and tense atmosphere that immediately pulls the audience into a world filled with danger, mystery, and emotional depth. The story is set in a modern yet gritty environment, where survival is never guaranteed and every decision can mean the difference between life and death. From the very first moments, the movie establishes a tone of suspense and anticipation. The camera slowly reveals a lonely landscape and a man living a quiet life far away from civilization. This man appears calm and controlled, but there is something in his eyes that suggests he has experienced a violent past. The introduction focuses on setting the stage for a story that mixes intense action with powerful human emotions, hinting that the calm environment around him will not last forever. As the narrative begins to unfold, viewers learn that the central character is a man who once lived a dangerous life. He has tried to leave that world behind and disappear from the people who once knew him. His daily routine is simple and isolated, suggesting that he has chosen a life of solitude in order to escape from the chaos of his past. The film carefully builds curiosity about who he really is and what kind of events forced him to hide from society. Through small details and subtle scenes, the audience realizes that he is highly trained, observant, and always alert to danger, even when nothing seems wrong. This slow introduction helps the viewers understand that, beneath the quiet surface, lies a man shaped by years of violence and survival. The environment shown in the early scenes plays a major role in shaping the mood of the movie. The remote setting creates a feeling of isolation that reflects the main character's inner state. Wide landscapes, quiet nights, and empty surroundings emphasize how far he has removed himself from the world he once knew. At the same time, this peaceful setting also creates tension because it feels too calm, as if something is about to disturb it. The filmmakers use lighting, sound, and camera angles to make the audience feel both relaxed and uneasy at the same time. This technique prepares viewers for the intense events that will eventually break the silence of the character's hidden life. Gradually, the movie begins to reveal small hints about the dangers that still exist around the protagonist. Although he tries to live a normal life, it becomes clear that he never fully relaxes. He constantly observes his surroundings, checks for possible threats, and keeps himself physically prepared for any unexpected situation. These subtle actions reveal that he has not truly escaped his past. Instead, he is simply waiting for it to return. The audience begins to sense that the quiet life he built is fragile and could collapse at any moment. This growing tension becomes one of the key elements that make the introduction so engaging and powerful. Another important aspect introduced in the early part of the film is the emotional side of the story. While the character appears strong and disciplined, there are moments that show a deeper layer of loneliness and regret. The audience can feel that he carries memories that he would rather forget. His isolation is not only about hiding from enemies, but also about distancing himself from the guilt and pain connected to his former life. These emotional hints create a strong connection between the viewer and the character, making the audience curious about what happened in his past and whether he will ever find peace. The pacing of the introduction is carefully balanced to maintain suspense while gradually revealing information. Instead of immediately showing action or violence, the film takes time to build its characters and atmosphere. This slow build-up allows viewers to fully understand the world of the story before the chaos begins. Each scene adds a small piece to the puzzle, encouraging the audience to pay attention to details and anticipate future events. The filmmakers clearly want the audience to feel invested in the story and its characters before the main conflict appears. At the same time, the film introduces subtle clues that powerful enemies may still be searching for the protagonist. Small signs, mysterious movements, or distant threats suggest that someone might be watching or waiting for the right moment to strike. These hints create an underlying tension that runs through the introduction. Even when nothing dramatic happens, the audience feels that danger is always close. This sense of hidden threat is one of the reasons why the opening of the movie feels so gripping and suspenseful. The introduction also highlights the physical and mental strength of the main character. Through simple actions, such as training, repairing equipment, or observing his surroundings, the film demonstrates that he is not an ordinary man. His movements are precise and controlled, showing years of experience and discipline. These scenes quietly establish him as someone capable of surviving extremely dangerous situations, without showing any major action sequences yet. The movie successfully convinces the audience that he is a highly skilled individual, who once operated in a much more dangerous world. As the introduction continues, the audience begins to realize that the peaceful life the protagonist has created cannot last forever. The story slowly moves toward a moment that will change everything. The quiet setting, the mysterious past, and the hidden threats all build toward an inevitable conflict. The viewer starts to feel that the calm atmosphere is only temporary and that something unexpected will soon force the character to confront the past he tried so hard to escape. This anticipation keeps the audience fully engaged with the story. By the end of the introduction, the film successfully establishes its main themes of survival, redemption, and protection. The audience now understands that the story is not only about action and danger, but also about a man trying to find meaning and peace. After a life filled with violence, the calm beginning serves as a powerful contrast to the intense events that will follow later in the movie. Through careful storytelling, strong atmosphere, and emotional depth, the introduction prepares viewers for a thrilling journey where the protagonist will be forced to face both external enemies and the memories of his past. Michael Mason is introduced as a man surrounded by mystery. a person whose presence alone suggests a long history of danger and survival. People who encounter him for the first time may see only a quiet and disciplined individual, but beneath that calm exterior lies the mind of someone who has spent years navigating life-threatening situations. His movements are controlled, his expressions rarely reveal his thoughts, and his eyes constantly scan the environment as if danger could appear at any moment. This careful awareness shows that he is not an ordinary person living a simple life. Instead, he carries the habits of someone who has survived a world filled with violence, secrecy, and betrayal. From the moment he appears on screen, the audience understands that Michael Mason is a man shaped by experiences most people could never imagine. Although he lives quietly now, the story slowly reveals that Michael once worked as a highly trained assassin. His past is connected to secret operations, covert missions, and dangerous organizations that operate beyond the knowledge of ordinary people. In that hidden world, he developed extraordinary skills that made him both respected and feared. He learned how to track enemies, plan complex strategies, and survive situations where a single mistake could lead to death. However, the life of an assassin is never simple, and it often forces people to make decisions that haunt them forever. Michael eventually realized that the path he had chosen was destroying his sense of humanity, which is why he decided to disappear and leave that life behind. Despite his attempt to escape his past, Michael cannot completely erase the person he once was. The discipline and training he gained over the years remain deeply embedded in his behavior. Even when performing simple daily tasks, he acts with precision and caution. His body language suggests that he is always prepared for confrontation, even if he hopes it will never happen. This constant readiness is not driven by fear, but by experience. He understands how quickly a peaceful moment can turn into a deadly encounter, and he refuses to allow himself to become careless. For him, survival depends on awareness, control, and the ability to react faster than anyone else. Another aspect that makes Michael Mason such a fascinating character is the contrast between his dangerous skills and his quiet personality. Unlike many men who enjoy power or violence, Michael does not seek conflict. In fact, he avoids attention and prefers to remain invisible to the world around him. He rarely speaks about his past and keeps his personal life hidden from others. This silence adds to the mystery surrounding him, making it difficult for anyone to truly understand who he is. The audience gradually realizes that this secrecy is not only about protection, but also about regret. Michael carries memories of actions he cannot change, and those memories influence every decision he makes in the present. The psychological depth of Michael's character becomes clearer as the story progresses. While he is capable of incredible strength and efficiency in dangerous situations, there are moments when his emotional vulnerability becomes visible. These brief glimpses reveal that he is not simply a cold professional, but a man struggling with the consequences of his past choices. Years of living as an assassin have left emotional scars that cannot easily disappear. He remembers the lives he has taken and the people he has lost along the way. These memories have shaped his desire to live differently, to find some form of redemption for the mistakes he believes he has made. Michael's mysterious nature also affects the way other characters react to him. People who interact with him often sense that he is hiding something important. His calm confidence, sharp instincts, and controlled behavior make it clear that he is not an ordinary man. Some people feel uneasy around him because they cannot predict what he might do in a difficult situation. Others feel strangely protected by his presence, as if they instinctively trust his ability to handle danger. This mixture of fear and respect creates an interesting dynamic between Michael and the people he encounters throughout the story. His past life as an assassin required not only physical strength, but also mental discipline. Michael learned how to remain calm under extreme pressure, analyze complex situations within seconds, and adapt quickly when plans went wrong. These abilities are what allowed him to survive in a profession where many others did not. Even though he now tries to live peacefully, those same skills remain a part of him. When unexpected challenges appear, his instincts immediately return, guiding him to act with speed and precision. This dual nature between the man he wants to be and the man he once was creates much of the tension surrounding his character. Another layer of mystery surrounding Michael Mason is the question of why he truly left his former life. While the film provides hints about betrayal, guilt, and personal loss, the full story remains partially hidden. This uncertainty encourages viewers to imagine the events that might have forced him to abandon everything he once knew. Perhaps he discovered that the organization he worked for had its own dark secrets. Or perhaps he reached a moment where he could no longer justify the violence he was ordered to carry out. Whatever the reason, it is clear that leaving that world required immense courage, because walking away from such a powerful system can be as dangerous as staying within it. Even though Michael tries to live in isolation, the reputation he built in the past has not completely faded. There are people who still remember his abilities and the role he once played in secret operations. Some may see him as a valuable asset they want to bring back, while others may view him as a threat who knows too much. This lingering connection to his former life creates a constant sense of tension. Michael understands that the past rarely stays buried forever, and sooner or later someone may come searching for him. Ultimately, Michael Mason represents the complex idea of a warrior who no longer wishes to fight but may be forced to do so again. His story is not only about action and danger, but also about identity, regret, and the possibility of change. He is a man who has seen the darkest parts of humanity yet still hopes to find a different path. The mystery surrounding him keeps the audience intrigued, while his quiet determination and hidden emotions make him deeply human. As the story continues, viewers begin to realize that the calm life he has created may soon be threatened. And when that happens, the world will once again witness the true capabilities of the mysterious assassin known as Michael Mason. Life on the remote island represents a completely different world from the dangerous environment Michael Mason once knew. Surrounded by endless ocean, quiet winds, and vast empty landscapes, the island appears peaceful and untouched by the chaos of modern life. For Michael, this isolated place is not just a home but a form of refuge. It is a location where he can distance himself from the memories of violence that defined his past. The quiet atmosphere allows him to breathe freely, something he could never do when he was constantly moving between secret missions and dangerous encounters. The island feels almost like a protective barrier between him and the world he left behind. Every day on the island follows a simple and predictable routine. Michael wakes early, often before the sun fully rises over the water. The sound of waves and the fresh ocean air create a calm environment that contrasts sharply with the stressful life he once lived. His mornings usually involve physical training, maintaining his strength and discipline even though he no longer works as an assassin. Exercise is not just about staying in shape. It is also a way for him to clear his mind and maintain control over his thoughts. Years of training have taught him that a focused mind is the key to survival, and those habits remain part of his life even in isolation. The small shelter he has built on the island reflects his practical personality. It is simple but strong, designed to protect him from storms and harsh weather, while providing the essentials needed for survival. Inside, there are only a few possessions, tools, supplies, and items necessary for everyday life. Michael does not surround himself with unnecessary objects because he prefers a life free from distractions. The minimal environment mirrors his desire to simplify his existence and avoid the complexities that once dominated his world. In many ways, the shelter itself symbolizes his attempt to rebuild his life from the ground up. Living alone for long periods can affect a person deeply, but Michael seems to have accepted the silence of isolation. He spends time fishing, repairing equipment, and exploring different parts of the island to ensure he understands the terrain completely. These activities not only help him survive, but also provide a sense of purpose. By focusing on small daily tasks, he keeps his mind occupied and avoids thinking too much about the past. The rhythm of nature becomes his companion, replacing the constant tension and urgency that once defined his days. Despite the peaceful surroundings, Michael never fully abandons his cautious instincts. Even on this remote island, he maintains awareness of everything happening around him. When he walks along the shoreline or through the dense areas of vegetation, his eyes carefully observe every detail. This habit is not born from fear, but from years of experience in a dangerous profession. Once someone has lived in constant danger, it becomes impossible to completely ignore potential threats. His training has shaped the way he moves, thinks, and reacts, and those instincts remain part of him no matter how far he travels from civilization. At times, the quiet life gives Michael the opportunity to reflect on his past. The silence of the island often brings memories that he cannot easily escape. He remembers the missions he carried out, the people he encountered, and the moments that forced him to question his choices. These thoughts can be heavy, but they are also part of his attempt to understand who he truly is. Isolation allows him to confront these memories without the distractions of a busy world. While the process is painful, it is also necessary for someone trying to move beyond a life filled with violence. Nature plays an important role in shaping his emotional state. Watching the sun rise over the ocean or hearing the wind move through the trees reminds him that the world is larger than the conflicts he once faced. These simple experiences provide a sense of calm that he rarely felt in his former life. The island becomes more than a hiding place. It becomes a space where he can slowly reconnect with parts of himself that were lost during years of dangerous work. In this natural environment, he begins to rediscover the value of peace and solitude. However, even in this quiet paradise, Michael understands that isolation is not a permanent solution. The world beyond the island still exists, and the past cannot be completely erased. Sometimes he looks out across the water, aware that somewhere beyond the horizon there are people who might still remember his name. These moments create a subtle tension in his otherwise peaceful life. While he hopes the past will never find him, he knows that the possibility always remains. This awareness keeps him mentally prepared for any situation that might arise. Another challenge of living alone is the absence of human connection. Conversations, friendships, and relationships are things Michael has deliberately left behind. While solitude provides safety, it also creates a sense of loneliness that cannot be ignored forever. There are moments when he feels the weight of that loneliness, especially during long nights when the island becomes completely silent. Yet he accepts this emotional cost because he believes it is the price of escaping the life he once lived. For him, distance from others is the only way to ensure that his dangerous past does not harm innocent people. innocent people. In many ways, life on the remote island represents a fragile balance between peace and hidden tension. The environment offers calmness, safety, and the opportunity to rebuild a broken sense of identity. At the same time, the habits and memories of Michael's former life remain just beneath the surface. His isolated existence allows him to temporarily escape the chaos of the world, but it cannot completely erase who he once was. This delicate balance sets the stage for the events that will eventually disrupt his quiet life, proving that even the most remote sanctuary cannot always protect someone from the shadows of the past. The calm rhythm of life on the island is suddenly interrupted when dark clouds begin gathering across the sky. What starts as a distant rumble of thunder slowly grows into a powerful storm moving rapidly toward the coastline. The wind becomes stronger with every passing minute, bending trees and sending waves crashing violently against the rocky shore. For Michael Mason, storms are not unusual on the island, but this one feels different. The air carries a strange intensity, and the ocean seems restless, as if warning that something unexpected is about to happen. He steps outside his shelter and carefully studies the horizon, his instincts telling him that this storm may bring more than just rain and wind. As the storm grows stronger, the sky turns dark even though it is still early in the day. Lightning flashes across the clouds, briefly illuminating the rough waves that are crashing endlessly against the shore. The sound of thunder echoes across the island, mixing with the roar of the wind. Michael begins securing his shelter and equipment, making sure everything is protected from the violent weather. Years of experience have taught him how quickly a storm can destroy anything left unprotected. However, while he is preparing for the storm, he notices something unusual in the distance, something moving among the waves. At first, it is difficult to see clearly through the heavy rain and rising sea spray. The storm makes visibility almost impossible, but Michael's sharp eyes eventually catch a glimpse of what appears to be wreckage floating in the water. The powerful waves toss broken pieces of wood and metal toward the shore. Among the debris, he notices something else, a small figure struggling against the violent current. For a moment he wonders if his eyes are deceiving him, but another flash of lightning confirms what he feared. Someone is trapped in the ocean, helpless against the force of the storm. Without hesitation, Michael moves toward the shoreline. The wind nearly knocks him off balance as he fights his way across the wet sand and jagged rocks. The waves crash violently around him, sending freezing water across his body. In such conditions, even the most experienced swimmer would hesitate, but Michael knows that every second matters. The figure in the water is being pulled farther away by the current. Ignoring the danger, he dives into the raging sea and begins swimming toward the struggling person. The ocean during the storm is brutal and unpredictable. Massive waves rise and fall with terrifying force, threatening to drag both of them under the water. Michael pushes forward with determination, using all the strength and endurance he has developed over years of intense training. Each wave hits him like a wall, but he refuses to give up. When he finally reaches the person in the water, he realizes it is a young girl, barely conscious and exhausted from fighting the current. She is too weak to keep herself afloat, and without help, she would not survive much longer. Carefully but quickly, Michael secures his grip on the girl and turns back toward the shore. The journey back is even more difficult because now he must support her weight while battling the violent waves. The storm continues to rage around them, and the ocean seems determined to pull them both under. Despite the danger, Michael remains calm and focused. His training has taught him to control panic and concentrate only on the task in front of him. Slowly and steadily, he fights his way through the water until the shoreline finally comes within reach. After what feels like an endless struggle, he manages to drag both of them onto the wet sand. The rain continues pouring down as thunder shakes the sky above them. The girl is unconscious and barely breathing. Michael immediately begins checking her condition, making sure she is still alive. Using the knowledge he gained during his years in dangerous operations, he performs emergency steps to help her breathe again. For several tense moments, there is no response, and the storm seems to grow louder around them. Finally, the girl coughs and begins breathing again. Water spills from her lungs as she slowly regains consciousness. Michael quickly carries her back to his shelter to protect her from the freezing rain and powerful wind. Inside, he lights a fire and wraps her in dry blankets, trying to warm her body after the brutal exposure to the storm. Although he has lived alone for a long time, this moment reminds him that protecting another life can bring a different kind of responsibility. As the storm continues outside, Michael begins to wonder where the girl came from and how she ended up in the middle of such a violent ocean. The wreckage he saw earlier suggests that a boat may have been destroyed by the storm. If that is true, there could be others who did not survive the disaster. The thought creates a heavy silence inside the shelter. The girl appears young and vulnerable, completely out of place in this harsh environment. While she rests, Michael watches over her carefully, his mind filled with questions. Saving her may seem like a simple act of humanity, but he understands that unexpected events often bring hidden consequences. The arrival of this mysterious girl could change everything about the quiet life he has built on the island. As the storm slowly begins to fade outside, Michael senses that this rescue may be the beginning of something far more complicated than he ever expected. For a long time, Michael Mason believed that the past he left behind would never reach him again. The remote island, far from busy cities and hidden from most of the world, seemed like the perfect place to disappear. After years of silence and isolation, he allowed himself to believe that the dangerous life he once lived had finally ended. But the arrival of the young girl begins to disturb that fragile sense of safety. As she slowly recovers from the storm, Michael starts to notice signs that something about her situation is not normal. The wreckage in the ocean, the strange circumstances of her arrival, and the fear in her eyes suggest that there may be more to her story than a simple accident at sea. Michael's instincts, sharpened by years of survival in a dangerous profession, immediately begin to warn him that trouble may not be far behind. The habits he once relied on return almost automatically. He begins observing the island more carefully, scanning the coastline for any unusual movement or unfamiliar sound. Living alone for so long has taught him to read even the smallest changes in his surroundings. A distant engine, a shadow on the water, or a sudden silence in the wildlife could all be signs that someone else has arrived. Although the island has always felt like a safe hiding place, Michael now realizes that its isolation could also make it the perfect place for someone to find him without being seen. The girl's presence slowly reveals hints that powerful forces may be searching for her. When she finally regains enough strength to speak, her words are cautious and uncertain, as if she is afraid of revealing too much. It becomes clear that she is not just a victim of a storm, but someone who may have been escaping from danger. Michael notices the way she reacts to certain sounds and the way she constantly looks over her shoulder. These are the reactions of someone who has been running for a long time. Her fear reminds him of people he encountered in the past, individuals who had been caught in conflicts far bigger than themselves. As these suspicions grow stronger, Michael begins to feel the familiar weight of his old life pressing against the peaceful world he created. The quiet routine that once defined his days is replaced by careful planning and silent preparation. He checks his equipment, studies the island's terrain, and mentally prepares for the possibility of confrontation. Even though he hoped never to return to that mindset, he understands that survival sometimes requires difficult choices. Protecting the girl may mean stepping back into a world he tried so hard to escape. Memories of his former life begin resurfacing more frequently. Faces, missions, and moments of violence flash through his mind as he realizes that the skills he once used may soon become necessary again. These memories are not pleasant. They carry the weight of decisions that shaped the man he has become. He remembers the organizations that trained him, the people who commanded him, and the enemies who once tried to eliminate him. Walking away from that world was never simple, and he always knew there was a chance it would eventually catch up to him. One of the most troubling possibilities is that someone may have discovered his location. In the past, very few people knew where he had gone after leaving the life of an assassin. If enemies from his former world have found a way to track him, it would mean that the peaceful years he spent on the island were only temporary. This thought forces him to confront a reality he tried to ignore. No matter how far he runs, the past has a way of returning when it is least expected. At the same time, Michael realizes that the girl may be connected to people far more powerful than he initially assumed. Her arrival during such a violent storm could be pure coincidence, but his instincts tell him otherwise. The wrecked boat might have been fleeing from someone, or it might have been attacked before the storm even began. If that is the case, whoever was chasing her could eventually come searching for survivors. The island, once a place of solitude, may soon become the center of a dangerous conflict. Despite the growing tension, Michael refuses to abandon the girl. Something about her situation reminds him of the innocent lives that often become casualties in secret wars. During his years as an assassin, he saw how powerful organizations treated ordinary people as disposable pieces in larger plans. Those memories are part of the reason he left that life behind. Now, faced with the possibility that the girl is running from a similar threat, he cannot simply ignore her safety. Preparing for the return of danger changes the atmosphere of the island completely. The quiet beauty of the ocean and the peaceful silence of the forests now feel different, as if they are hiding unseen threats. Michael moves carefully through his surroundings, always alert and ready to react. His body remembers every movement required for survival. Even if his mind wishes he could remain the peaceful man he tried to become, the transformation is subtle but powerful, showing that the warrior within him has never truly disappeared. As the days pass, the feeling that something is approaching grows stronger. Michael senses that the calm before the storm has returned, but this time the storm is not made of wind and rain. It is made of people, secrets, and unfinished conflicts from a life he thought was over. The past he tried to escape is moving closer, and soon he may be forced to face it once again. This realization marks the beginning of a new chapter in his story, one where survival, protection, and redemption will collide in ways he never expected. As the tension surrounding the girl's arrival continues to grow, Michael Mason begins to suspect that the danger approaching the island is not random. The careful way the girl speaks, her fear of being found, and the mysterious wreckage from the storm all suggest that powerful forces may be involved. Michael knows from experience that when situations feel this complicated, they are often connected to organizations that operate in secrecy. During his years as an assassin, He worked in a world where governments and hidden agencies carried out missions that ordinary people never knew existed. Because of that past, he immediately recognizes the signs that trained professionals may soon be coming for the girl. Far away from the quiet island, a secret agency begins to investigate the disappearance of the girl and the destruction of the boat. Inside a high-security facility, agents analyze satellite data, radio signals, and intelligence reports to determine what happened during the storm. The agency is not a typical law enforcement group. It operates beyond normal rules and answers only to a small group of powerful officials. Their missions often involve sensitive information and covert operations that must remain hidden from the public. For them, the girl is not simply a missing person, but someone connected to information that could create serious problems if it falls into the wrong hands. Within the agency, a group of highly trained operatives is assigned to track down the girl as quickly as possible. These agents are experienced in surveillance, combat, and tactical operations. They are used to working in dangerous environments and handling situations where failure is not an option. When intelligence reports suggest that a survivor from the wreck may have reached a remote island, the agency decides to send a specialized team to investigate. Their objective is simple: locate the girl and bring her back, no matter what obstacles stand in their way. The agents preparing for the mission have no idea that Michael Mason is living on that island. If they knew his identity, the operation would become far more complicated. Michael's name still carries weight in certain circles, especially among people who once worked with him or against him. Many in the secret world remember him as one of the most skilled operatives they had ever encountered. The fact that he disappeared years ago only added to the mystery surrounding him. Some believed he was dead, while others suspected he had simply vanished to escape the system that once controlled his life. Meanwhile, on the island, Michael begins noticing small signs that confirm his fears. One evening, while observing the ocean from a high point on the coastline, he spots a distant light moving slowly across the water. At first, it appears to be a fishing vessel or a passing boat, but its steady movement toward the island makes him suspicious. He watches carefully, analyzing the speed and direction of the vessel. His instincts tell him that this is not a random traveler. Whoever is on that boat knows exactly where they are going. The arrival of the secret agency's team marks the beginning of a dangerous situation. These agents are trained to approach their missions with precision and discipline. They carry advanced equipment, communication devices, and weapons designed for covert operations. Their plan is to search the island quietly and locate the girl without attracting attention. However, they quickly realize that the island is not completely deserted. Signs of human activity footprints, fishing tools, and a small shelter indicate that someone has been living there for a long time. When the agents begin investigating these clues, they unknowingly step into territory controlled by a man who understands their methods better than anyone else. Michael observes their movements from a distance, recognizing the tactics they are using to explore the island. The way they communicate, spread out across the terrain, and carefully study the environment confirms his suspicions. These are not ordinary soldiers or criminals. They are professionals trained by an organization with significant resources. For Michael, the situation creates a difficult decision. He has spent years avoiding involvement in conflicts like this. His goal was always to remain invisible and live peacefully away from the violent world he once knew. But now that world has found him again, and it is threatening the safety of the girl he rescued. If the agents take her away, he has no idea what will happen to her, or why the agency wants her so badly. His sense of responsibility begins to outweigh his desire to remain hidden. At the same time, the agents slowly become aware that they may not be alone on the island. Small details start raising questions tracks that disappear suddenly, objects that have been moved, and signs that someone is watching them. Their training tells them to remain cautious, because unexpected resistance could mean they are dealing with someone skilled and dangerous. What they do not yet realize is that the man observing them already knows how they think and how they operate. The presence of the secret agency turns the quiet island into a silent battlefield of strategy and patience. Both sides move carefully, trying to understand the situation without revealing too much. For Michael, the return of enemies connected to the hidden world he escaped proves that his peaceful life is over. The past he tried to bury has arrived with trained agents, advanced technology, and orders that will not easily change. As the tension builds, it becomes clear that a confrontation between Michael Mason and the operatives of the secret agency is only a matter of time. After the arrival of the secret agency's operatives on the island, Michael Mason fully understands that the situation has become far more serious than he first imagined. The young girl he rescued is no longer just a survivor of a storm. She has become the center of a dangerous pursuit. The moment Michael realizes that trained agents are searching the island, he makes a quiet but powerful decision. No matter who these people are or what authority they claim to have, he will protect the girl. Her name, Jessie, now carries a responsibility he cannot ignore. For Michael, protecting her is not simply an act of kindness. It becomes a personal mission. Jessie is still recovering from the trauma of the storm and the events that happened before it. She is young, frightened, and confused about what is happening around her. The island that once felt like a safe place begins to feel like a trap as strangers search the area. Michael notices how her fear grows whenever she hears distant noises or sees movement near the trees. To calm her, he speaks in a steady and reassuring voice, explaining that she is safe for now, even though he cannot promise that danger will disappear. He wants her to believe that someone is standing between her and the people chasing her. As the tension increases, Michael begins preparing the island as if it were a defensive position. His years of experience in covert operations taught him how to survive against powerful opponents, even when he was outnumbered. He studies the terrain carefully, identifying areas where he can move unnoticed and places where intruders might try to approach. The island may appear small and isolated, but to someone with Michael's knowledge, it offers many advantages. Dense trees, rocky paths, and hidden viewpoints allow him to observe the agents without being seen. At the same time, he teaches Jussie small but important things that might help her stay safe. He shows her where to hide if something goes wrong and explains how to move quietly through certain parts of the island. Although she is young, Jessie listens carefully because she understands that the danger around them is real. Her trust in Michael grows stronger each day. She can see the determination in his actions and the calm focus in his eyes. Even though she does not fully understand who he is or what he used to do, she senses that he is someone capable of protecting her. For Michael, this responsibility brings back emotions he has not felt in years. During his life as an assassin, he often worked alone and avoided forming close relationships with others. Trust was dangerous in that world, and attachments could easily become weaknesses. But Jessie's presence changes something inside him. Protecting her reminds him of the person he hoped to become when he left his violent past behind. Instead of fighting for orders or missions, he is now fighting for something human and meaningful. The agents searching the island continue their careful investigation, unaware of how closely they are being watched. Michael studies their movements, learning their patterns and predicting their strategies. He knows that eventually they will come closer to the shelter where he and Jesse are staying. When that moment arrives, he must be ready to act quickly and decisively. The advantage he holds is knowledge of the island, knowledge of their tactics, and knowledge of how professionals think when they are hunting someone. Despite the danger, Michael does everything possible to keep Jesse calm and hopeful. During quiet moments, he encourages her to rest, eat, and regain her strength. He understands that fear can weaken a person's ability to think clearly, especially a child who has already experienced so much trauma. By showing patience and kindness, he tries to create a sense of normal life even while preparing for conflict. These moments reveal a softer side of Michael that few people have ever seen. Jesse also begins asking questions about why the agents are searching for her. Michael cannot answer all of them because he still does not know the full truth himself. However, he tells her that whatever the reason may be, no one has the right to hunt her or treat her like a target. This promise strengthens the bond between them. Jesse begins to see Michael not just as a rescuer, but as someone she can rely on completely. As the days pass, the situation grows more intense. The agents move deeper into the island, closing the distance between themselves and the shelter. Michael senses that time is running out. Soon, the quiet preparation will turn into direct confrontation. Even though he hoped never to return to the violent skills he once mastered, he knows that protecting Jesse may require him to use every ability he has. In the end, Michael accepts that his peaceful life has changed forever. The island that once symbolized escape and solitude has become a place where he must stand and fight for someone else's future. Protecting Jesse at all costs is no longer just a choice, it is the path he is committed to. No matter how powerful the enemies may be, Michael Mason is prepared to face them, because some battles are worth fighting no matter the risk. As the tension on the island reaches its peak, the quiet atmosphere that once defined Michael Mason's life disappears completely. The agents sent by the secret organization begin tightening their search across the island, moving with discipline and coordination. Their presence turns the once peaceful environment into a dangerous hunting ground. Michael realizes that hiding forever is no longer possible. Eventually, the agents will close in on his shelter and discover Jesse. When that moment comes, he must rely on the skills he spent years trying to forget. The calm protector must once again become the highly trained operative he once was. The first confrontation happens suddenly when one of the agents gets too close to a hidden path leading to the shelter. Michael has been observing their movements carefully, predicting where they might go next. When the agent steps into the wrong area, Michael quickly moves into action. The encounter is fast and precise, showing the speed and efficiency that once made him one of the most feared operatives in his field, without drawing unnecessary attention. He neutralizes the threat and disappears back into the forest before the other agents can understand what happened. However, the situation quickly escalates. The agency team realizes that someone on the island is actively resisting them, and they immediately change their strategy. Instead of searching quietly, they begin coordinating a wider operation to track down whoever is interfering with their mission. Advanced communication devices and tactical signals allow them to spread out across the island, turning the environment into a maze of patrols and search patterns. For Michael, this means that the time for silent observation is ending. The conflict is moving toward open pursuit. When the agents discover signs of Jesse's presence, the chase truly begins. Michael grabs the essential supplies and quickly leads Jesse away from the shelter before the agents arrive. The island's narrow trails, rocky cliffs, and dense forests become the setting for a tense escape. Michael moves quickly but carefully, guiding Jesse through hidden paths he explored during his years of isolation. Behind them, the agents begin following the trail, determined not to let their targets escape again. The chase through the island is intense and unpredictable. At times, Michael must slow down to help Jesse cross dangerous terrain, such as slippery rocks or steep hills. At other moments, they must run quickly to avoid being surrounded. The sound of distant footsteps and radio signals reminds them that the agents are never far behind. Every decision Michael makes must balance speed with safety, because one wrong move could allow their pursuers to catch up. At one point during their escape, the chase leads them toward the coastline where powerful waves crash against the rocks. Michael knows that this area offers both danger and opportunity. The uneven terrain makes it difficult for large groups to move quickly, which could slow down the agents. However, it also increases the risk of falling or becoming trapped, carefully guiding Jesse along a narrow path above the water. He uses the sound of the ocean and the rough landscape to hide their movements. The agents, realizing their targets are trying to reach the far side of the island, increase their efforts to intercept them. Some attempt to move ahead and block possible escape routes, while others continue following directly behind. The chase becomes a complex battle of strategy, where both sides try to outthink each other. Michael uses his deep understanding of tactical movement to predict how the agents will behave, often changing direction at the last moment to confuse their pursuit. During one particularly intense moment, a group of agents finally manages to close the distance. A brief but explosive confrontation breaks out among the trees. The fast-paced action reveals Michael's extraordinary combat abilities. Even after years away from the dangerous world of covert operations, his reflexes remain sharp and controlled. Every movement is deliberate, every decision calculated. He does not seek unnecessary violence, but he will not allow anyone to harm Jesse. After managing to break away from the agents once again, Michael and Jesse continue their escape deeper into the island. The chase leaves both of them exhausted, but Michael refuses to slow down. He knows that the agents will regroup and continue searching. For them, failure is not acceptable, and they will not abandon their mission easily. The relentless pursuit adds pressure to every step they take. Despite the danger, Jesse begins to see a side of Michael she had only glimpsed before. His determination, courage, and strategic thinking reveal why he once survived in such a brutal profession. Yet at the same time, she can see that he is not fighting for power or revenge. He is fighting for her safety. That realization strengthens her trust in him and gives her the courage to keep going, even when fear threatens to overwhelm her. The high-intensity chase across the island marks a turning point in their struggle. What started as a rescue during a storm has now become a full battle for survival. The agents of the secret organization are closing in, and the island itself has turned into a dangerous battlefield of pursuit and escape. As the conflict continues to escalate, it becomes clear that the next encounter will be even more decisive, pushing both Michael and his enemies toward a final and unavoidable confrontation. The relentless pursuit across the island eventually leads to a moment where escape is no longer possible. Michael Mason understands that running forever will only place Jesse in greater danger. The agents of the secret organization are highly trained, well-equipped, and determined to complete their mission. Every path on the island is slowly being searched, and the distance between the hunters and their targets continues to shrink. Standing on a rocky ridge overlooking the forest, Michael realizes that the only way to end the chase is to confront the people who have turned his peaceful refuge into a battlefield. For the first time since leaving his former life, Michael fully accepts that he must return to the role he once tried to forget. The calm and quiet man who lived alone on the island fades into the background, replaced by the focused and disciplined operative he used to be. His mind becomes sharp and analytical, studying every detail of the terrain and predicting the possible movements of the agents. Years of experience in covert operations taught him how to control fear and turn difficult situations into opportunities. Now those same skills will determine whether he and Jesse survive. Before preparing for the confrontation, Michael finds a safe place where Jesse can remain hidden. Deep within a narrow part of the forest, surrounded by thick trees and rocky formations, he shows her a concealed area where she will be protected from immediate danger. He explains that she must stay quiet and wait until he returns. Jessie can see the seriousness in his expression, and although she is afraid, she understands that he is doing everything possible to protect her. The moment carries emotional weight because both of them know that the next few hours will decide their future. Meanwhile, the agency team continues to close in. Their leader, an experienced operative who has spent years handling dangerous assignments, begins to realize that the man they are dealing with is not an ordinary civilian. The resistance they encountered during the chase, the precise way their movements were counted, and the sudden disappearance of their tracks all suggest that someone with advanced training is opposing them. Slowly, the leader begins to suspect that they may be facing someone who understands their tactics as well as they do. The confrontation begins when Michael intentionally reveals his presence in a location that gives him a strategic advantage. From elevated ground surrounded by natural cover, he watches as the agents approach carefully. The tension in the air is heavy, and the quiet forest feels like it is holding its breath. When the first agent steps into the clearing, the silence shatters into sudden action. Michael moves with incredible speed, using his knowledge of combat and strategy to disrupt the formation of the agents before they can fully react. What follows is a fast and intense battle that spreads across the rugged terrain. The agents attempt to regroup and coordinate their attack, but Michael constantly changes position, using the island's natural obstacles to stay one step ahead. His movements are controlled and efficient, reflecting years of experience in higher-risk missions. Even though he is outnumbered, his understanding of the environment allows him to neutralize threats one by one, turning the agent's own strategies against them. During the confrontation, the leader of the agency team finally comes face to face with Michael. In that moment, recognition appears in the agent's eyes. The name Michael Mason is not unknown within secret circles, and the realization that he is still alive changes the meaning of the mission. What was supposed to be a simple retrieval operation has now become something far more complicated. The leader understands that defeating Michael will not be easy, because he is facing someone who once operated at the highest level of covert skill. Their confrontation becomes the emotional and strategic center of the conflict. Both men are experienced, intelligent, and aware that the outcome of this encounter will determine everything. The leader tries to convince Michael that the agency's mission is necessary and that resisting them will only make the situation worse. But Michael refuses to accept that explanation. After everything he has seen during his years in the hidden world of intelligence operations, he no longer trusts organizations that claim to act for the greater good while putting innocent lives at risk. The battle between them becomes a clash not only of skill but also of beliefs. Michael fights not for orders or loyalty to an organization, but for the safety of Jessie and the chance to protect someone who cannot defend herself. The agency leader, on the other hand, believes he is carrying out a mission that must be completed regardless of personal cost. Their conflict represents two different views of duty and responsibility, each shaped by years of experience in dangerous environments. In the end, the confrontation reaches its final moment when Michael gains the upper hand through a combination of strategy, patience, and determination. The agents who once controlled the island's search are forced to retreat or surrender, realizing that continuing the fight will only lead to further losses. The storm of conflict that arrived on the island begins to settle, leaving behind silence where chaos once ruled. As the dust of the battle fades, Michael stands alone for a moment, reflecting on everything that has happened. The final confrontation has ended the immediate threat, but it has also confirmed something he always feared. The world he tried to escape will never completely forget him. Yet despite that truth, he knows he made the right choice. Protecting Jessie was worth the risk, and for the first time in many years, he feels that his actions have served a purpose beyond survival. After the intense confrontation on the island, the atmosphere slowly returns to silence. The sound of the ocean and the wind moving through the trees replaces the chaos that had taken over the land only hours before. Michael Mason stands among the aftermath of the conflict, aware that the danger which invaded his peaceful refuge has finally come to an end. The agents who once hunted him and Jessie are no longer a threat, and the island that had turned into a battlefield begins to feel calm again. Yet this calm is different from the one Michael experienced before, because everything that happened has changed both him and the young girl he chose to protect. When Michael returns to the hidden place where Jessie was waiting, the relief on her face is immediate. She had been listening to distant sounds of the confrontation, unsure of what the outcome would be. Seeing Michael return safely reassures her that the nightmare they face together is finally over. The moment is quiet but powerful because it represents more than survival. It shows that trust and courage allowed them to overcome a situation that once seemed impossible. Jessie understands that Michael risked everything to keep her safe, and that realization strengthens the bond that formed between them during their time on the island. In the hours that follow, both of them take time to recover from the physical and emotional exhaustion caused by the chase and the battle. The island once again becomes a place of reflection rather than conflict. Michael begins repairing parts of his shelter that were damaged during the search, while Jessie slowly regains her sense of security. Although the immediate danger is gone, the experience has left a lasting impact on both of them. For Michael, it is a reminder that even when someone tries to escape the past, life can still demand difficult choices. As the story moves toward its conclusion, Michael reflects on the journey that led him to this moment. When he first arrived on the island years earlier, he believed isolation was the only way to find peace. By cutting himself off from the world, he hoped to leave behind the violence and secrets that once defined his life. But saving Jessie forced him to confront a truth he had been avoiding. Peace cannot always be found by running away from responsibility. Sometimes it comes from facing danger in order to protect others. Jessie's presence also changes the way Michael views his future. During his years of solitude, he never imagined sharing his life with another person again. Trust was something he had lost during his time in the world of covert operations. Yet the courage and determination Jessie showed throughout their struggle reminds him that people can still inspire hope even in the darkest circumstances. Her survival becomes a symbol of the possibility that life can move forward despite the shadows of the past. Eventually, the time comes for a decision about what will happen next. The island has been a sanctuary for Michael, but the recent events prove that it can no longer remain completely hidden from the outside world. Staying there forever may only bring new dangers in the future. Michael understands that Jessie deserves a life beyond fear and isolation, a life where she can grow, learn, and experience the world safely. Helping her find that future becomes the final responsibility he chooses to accept. Before leaving the island, Michael takes one last look at the place that protected him for so many years. The quiet beaches, the shelter he built with his own hands, and the forests that once gave him solitude now represent a chapter of his life that is coming to an end. Although it is difficult to say goodbye to the place where he tried to rebuild himself, he knows that remaining there would mean returning to the loneliness he once believed was necessary. The final moments of the story emphasize the emotional transformation that Michael has experienced. Instead of being defined by the role of a mysterious assassin hiding from the world, he now sees himself as someone capable of protecting and guiding others. The events on the island forced him to rediscover a sense of purpose that he thought he had lost forever. Protecting Jessie did not erase his past, but it gave his life a new direction. For Jessie, the journey represents the discovery that courage can exist even in the most frightening situations. At the beginning of the story, she was a frightened survivor of a storm, uncertain about who she could trust. By the end, she has learned that strength can come from unexpected places, and that people who seem distant or mysterious can sometimes become the greatest protectors. Her experience with Michael teaches her that compassion and bravery often appear when they are needed most. The message of the story ultimately focuses on redemption, responsibility, and the power of human connection. Michael's life as an assassin once revolved around secrecy and survival, but the arrival of Jessie forced him to rediscover his humanity. Instead of living only for himself, he chose to stand against powerful enemies in order to defend someone who needed help. This decision shows that even people with dark or complicated pasts can find new meaning through the choices they make in the present. In the end, the story leaves the audience with a sense of hope. The island may remain behind them, but the lessons learned there continue shaping their future. Michael and Jessie move forward not as strangers brought together by accident, but as two people whose lives changed because they chose courage over fear. The journey that began with a violent storm and a desperate rescue ends with the possibility of a new beginning, proving that sometimes the most powerful battles are the ones that help us rediscover who we truly are. After the violent confrontation with the agents and the intense chase across the island, an unusual calm begins to settle over the landscape. The sounds of conflict slowly fade, leaving behind the familiar rhythm of waves crashing against the shore and the wind passing through the trees. At first, the silence feels almost unreal, as if the island itself is recovering from the chaos that recently disturbed its peace. Michael Mason moves carefully through the area, checking the surroundings and making sure that no immediate threats remain. Although everything appears quiet, his instincts remind him that moments of calm in dangerous situations often come just before another storm. Michael has lived long enough in the world of danger to understand that silence does not always mean safety. In fact, the absence of activity can sometimes be more unsettling than open conflict. He studies the coastline and distant horizon, searching for any signs that someone else might be approaching. The secret agency may have lost the team that came to the island, but organizations with that level of power rarely give up easily. The thought lingers in his mind that somewhere people may already be preparing another move. This awareness keeps him alert even when everything around him appears peaceful. Meanwhile, Jesse begins to notice the change in the atmosphere as well. After days filled with fear, running, and hiding, the quiet environment almost feels strange to her. She walks near the shelter, listening to the sounds of nature and trying to convince herself that the danger has truly passed. Yet deep inside, she also senses that the situation may not be completely over. The experiences she has gone through in such a short time have changed the way she sees the world. She is no longer the same frightened girl who struggled in the ocean during the storm. Michael spends time repairing the shelter and gathering supplies, partly because the recent events damaged parts of the island environment, and partly because staying busy helps him think. Every action he takes is deliberate and calm, but his mind continues analyzing what has happened. The agents who came to the island were highly trained, and their mission seemed extremely important. Organizations like that do not risk sending such teams without a serious reason. This raises a question that Michael cannot ignore. What makes Jessie so important that powerful people are willing to risk lives to capture her? As the day passes, the sunlight begins to break through the clouds that had once carried the storm. The island slowly returns to its natural beauty. Birds fly over the shoreline, and the ocean reflects the warm colors of the sky. To an outsider, it would appear like a peaceful paradise untouched by conflict. But Michael knows that beneath this calm surface lies the memory of everything that happened. The island has witnessed violence, secrets, and desperate survival, and those experiences cannot simply disappear. Jessie sometimes watches Michael while he works, noticing the way he moves and the seriousness in his expression. She understands that he is not relaxing even though the immediate danger seems gone. His behavior shows the habits of someone who has spent years preparing for unexpected threats. This observation makes her realize how much experience he must have gained before coming to the island. She begins to wonder about the life he lived before she arrived, a life he rarely talks about but that clearly shaped the person he is today. The quiet moments also give Michael time to think about what will happen next. The island has been his refuge for years, a place where he believed he could hide from the world. But recent events have proven that isolation is not always enough to escape the past. If the secret agency continues searching for Jessie, they may eventually send more people. That possibility means the island could once again become a dangerous place. Michael must consider whether staying there will truly keep them safe. At the same time, he notices that Jessie is slowly regaining her confidence. The fear that once dominated her thoughts begins to fade as she feels safer under his protection. She starts helping with small tasks around the shelter, learning how to fish and gather supplies. These activities help her feel less like a victim and more like someone who can survive difficult situations. Watching her determination reminds Michael that courage can exist even in people who seem vulnerable at first. Despite the peaceful environment, there is an unspoken tension between them and the world beyond the island. The events that brought Jessie here are still not fully understood, and the reasons behind the agency's pursuit remain unclear. Michael senses that there are still secrets waiting to be revealed. The calm surrounding them may only be temporary, a brief moment before new truths come to light. In many ways, this period of quiet reflection becomes an important turning point in their journey. The chaos of the chase and the battle force them to act quickly and survive moment by moment. Now, with the island temporarily calm, they finally have time to think about the larger picture. What happened before Jessie arrived? Why were powerful agents hunting her? And what kind of future awaits them after everything they have been through? These questions hang silently in the air, hinting that the story is far from over and that the calm they are experiencing may simply be the pause before the next wave of revelations and challenges. After the chaos and tension that shook the island, a period of quiet reflection allows Michael Mason to begin noticing small details about Jesse that he had not fully understood before. During the chase and the battle with the agents, survival was the only priority, leaving little time to question the deeper reasons behind the danger surrounding her. But now, with the island temporarily calm, Michael begins observing her more carefully. He notices the way she sometimes hesitates before answering simple questions, and how certain topics seem to make her nervous. These subtle reactions suggest that Jesse may be hiding something important at first. Michael does not push her to explain anything. He understands that people who have experienced trauma often need time before they feel safe enough to reveal the truth. Instead, he allows their daily routine to continue naturally. They repair parts of the shelter, gather food, and walk along the shoreline as the island slowly returns to its peaceful rhythm. During these quiet moments, Jesse gradually begins to trust him more deeply. She sees that he is not only protecting her, but also respecting her need for space and patience. One evening, as the sun begins to set over the ocean, Jesse finally gathers the courage to talk about what happened before the storm. The conversation starts slowly, with hesitation in her voice. She explains that the boat she was traveling on was not simply caught in bad weather. According to her, something had already gone wrong before the storm even began. The people on the boat were frightened and arguing with each other, and it became clear that they were trying to escape from someone who was chasing them. Michael listens carefully without interrupting. His experience tells him that every detail could matter. Jesse continues by describing how the boat suddenly lost control during the storm, crashing against the powerful waves. Amid the confusion and panic, she was thrown into the water and separated from the others. Everything after that moment becomes a blur of cold water, darkness, and fear until she eventually lost consciousness and woke up in Michael's shelter. After learning the truth about Jesse and the secret she carries, Michael Mason finds himself facing a deep and complicated internal conflict. For years he believed he had successfully escaped the world of danger, secrecy, and violent decisions that once defined his life. The island had become a place where he could live quietly and avoid the painful memories of his past. But now, with Jesse's life depending on him and powerful enemies possibly searching for them again, Michael realizes that the peaceful life he created may no longer exist. This realization forces him to confront emotions and thoughts he has tried to ignore for a long time. The struggle inside Michael is not only about the external threat surrounding Jesse, it is also about the man he used to be. During his years as an assassin, he followed orders, carried out missions, and operated in a world where trust was rare and survival depended on cold decisions. Leaving that life behind was not easy, and it required him to abandon everything he once knew. The isolation of the island was his way of distancing himself from the violence and guilt connected to those experiences. But now, protecting Jesse may require him to use those same skills again. At times, Michael questions whether stepping back into that world is the right choice. He fears that using the abilities he once relied on could slowly bring him back to the person he tried to leave behind. Every act of violence, even when done for protection, carries consequences. He wonders if defending Jesse will eventually pull him deeper into conflicts that he no longer wants to be part of. This fear creates a constant tension within him, because he is torn between the desire to remain peaceful and the responsibility to keep Jesse safe. The quiet moments on the island become times of reflection for him. When he walks along the shoreline or sits near the shelter at night, he thinks about the path that brought him here. Memories from his past return more frequently, faces of people he once worked with, missions that changed his life, and the decisions that made him realize he could not continue living that way. These memories are heavy, and they remind him why he chose isolation in the first place. Yet they also remind him of the skills that once allowed him to survive in dangerous situations. Jesse's presence makes his internal struggle even more complicated. She trusts him completely, believing that he will protect her no matter what happens. Seeing that trust in her eyes places a responsibility on his shoulders that he cannot ignore. For Michael, the idea of failing her is far worse than the possibility of returning to the dangerous world he escaped. Her courage and determination remind him that some battles are worth fighting, even if they come with personal sacrifices. Another part of Michael's struggle comes from uncertainty about the future. Even if he successfully protects Jessie from the agents who are searching for her, the problem may not disappear completely. The information she carries could continue attracting attention from powerful people who want to control it. This means their lives may never return to normal again. Michael realizes that protecting Jessie might require leaving the island and facing the outside world he has avoided for years. At the same time, he begins to understand that isolation may never have been a true solution to his problems. Hiding from the world allowed him to escape immediate danger, but it also prevented him from finding a deeper sense of purpose. Living alone kept him safe, yet it also left him disconnected from meaningful relationships. Jessie's arrival changes that dynamic. Her presence forces him to think not only about survival, but also about responsibility and the possibility of helping someone build a better future. This realization slowly shifts the way Michael views his situation. Instead of seeing his past abilities as something he must bury forever, he begins to see them as tools that can be used for a different purpose. The skills that once served violent missions can now serve protection and justice. This change in perspective does not erase the pain of his past, but it gives those experiences a new meaning. They become part of a path that may allow him to protect someone who truly needs help. Even so, the emotional weight of his decisions remains heavy. Every time he prepares for a potential confrontation or studies the island for signs of danger, he feels the tension between the life he wants and the life he may be forced to live again. The peaceful routine he built over the years feels fragile now, as if it could disappear completely depending on what happens next. Michael's inner struggle ultimately becomes a battle between fear and responsibility. Fear tells him to avoid conflict and remain hidden, while responsibility pushes him to stand up and protect Jessie from those who wish to harm her. As he continues thinking about the future, he begins to realize that running away from danger may no longer be an option. The choices he makes now will define not only his own path, but also Jessie's fate. In that realization, he understands that sometimes the hardest battles are not fought against enemies, but within the heart and mind of the person who must decide what kind of life they are, willing to live. The peaceful island that once served as Michael Mason's refuge slowly begins to change as the tension surrounding Jessie's secret grows stronger. What was once a quiet place filled with the sound of ocean waves and rustling trees now carries an uneasy feeling. Michael can sense that the fragile calm surrounding them will not last forever. The truth Jessie revealed about the powerful information she carries means that the people searching for her are unlikely to stop. Even though the first group of agents failed, Organizations with that level of power rarely abandon their objectives so easily. Michael's instincts tell him that the island may soon become the center of another dangerous confrontation. He begins observing the coastline more frequently, watching the distant horizon for signs of approaching boats or aircraft. His experience in covert operations taught him that when one mission fails, a stronger response often follows. The agency may send more agents, better equipment, or even a larger team to ensure that their objective is completed. The thought that the island could soon be invaded again creates a sense of urgency in everything Michael does. To prepare for what might happen, Michael starts studying every part of the island with greater attention. Although he has lived there for years, he now looks at the terrain from a different perspective. He identifies natural barriers, hidden paths, and elevated areas that could provide advantages during a conflict. Dense forests, rocky cliffs, and narrow trails become strategic locations rather than simple features of the landscape. In his mind, the island begins to transform from a peaceful sanctuary into a place where survival strategies must be carefully planned. Jesse notices these changes in Michael's behavior. He becomes more focused and serious, spending long hours exploring the island and checking possible routes of movement. Even though he tries to remain calm when speaking with her, it is clear that he is preparing for something serious. Jesse understands that the quiet days they recently experienced may only have been temporary. The people searching for her may return, and if they do, the island will once again become a dangerous place. As the days pass, Michael begins creating simple defensive measures using the resources available on the island. He sets up hidden observation points where he can monitor large sections of the coastline without being seen. He also marks safe paths that Jesse can use if they need to move quickly through the forest. These preparations are not meant to start a fight, but to give them a chance to survive if another confrontation begins. Michael knows that preparation often determines the difference between victory and defeat. The transformation of the island into a battlefield is not only physical, but also emotional. For Michael, every step of preparation reminds him of the life he tried to leave behind. The same skills he once used during secret missions are now returning to his daily routine. Planning escape routes, studying possible attack points, and anticipating enemy strategies are habits that once defined his existence. Even though he hoped never to use them again, he realizes that protecting Jesse may require every bit of experience he gained during those years. Meanwhile, Jesse begins to adapt to the situation as well. Instead of remaining passive, she tries to assist Michael in small ways. She helps organize supplies, gathers firewood, and learns how to move quietly through certain parts of the island. These actions give her a sense of participation in their survival, rather than feeling like someone who must simply wait for danger to arrive. Her willingness to help also shows Michael that she is stronger than she first appeared. One evening, while watching the distant ocean from a high cliff, Michael notices something that confirms his fears. Far away on the horizon, a faint shape moves slowly across the water. At first it is difficult to identify, but its steady approach suggests that it could be a boat heading directly toward the island. The sight immediately triggers his instincts. The calm days may finally be ending, and the next wave of conflict could be approaching sooner than expected. With that realization, the island's peaceful image fades completely. Every tree, rock, and narrow path now feels like part of a larger strategic environment. The place that once symbolized isolation and escape has become the stage for a possible battle between one determined protector and a powerful organization searching for the truth. Jesse carries Dot in many ways. This transformation reflects the deeper theme of their journey. The island was never meant to become a battlefield, yet circumstances have forced it into that role. For Michael and Jesse, survival will depend on courage, preparation, and trust in each other. As the distant boat moves closer to the shore, it becomes clear that the next chapter of their struggle is about to begin, and the quiet island will once again witness a clash between those who seek control and at first. The island had always been a place of peace for Michael Mason, a quiet refuge where he could escape the violent world he once belonged to. The sound of the ocean waves, the wind moving through the trees, and the wide empty landscape had given him a sense of freedom and distance from his past. But as the situation surrounding Jesse grows more dangerous, the atmosphere of the island slowly begins to change. The peaceful environment no longer feels like a safe sanctuary. Instead, it begins to resemble a territory where danger could appear from any direction. Michael understands that powerful organizations rarely give up when they are searching for something valuable. The agents who previously arrived on the island may have failed in their mission, but their disappearance will certainly raise questions. Sooner or later, others will come looking for answers. This realization forces Michael to view the island from a completely different perspective. What was once a place of solitude must now be prepared for conflict. The natural beauty around him becomes part of a strategic landscape where every hill, forest path, and rocky shoreline could play a role in survival. He begins carefully studying the terrain as if he were planning a defensive operation. Over the years, he had explored nearly every part of the island, but now he looks at it through the eyes of a trained operative. High cliffs offer clear views of the ocean, allowing him to spot approaching boats long before they reach the shore. Dense areas of forest provide natural cover where someone can move quietly without being seen. Narrow trails between rocks can act as natural barriers, slowing down anyone unfamiliar with the environment. Each part of the island becomes an advantage if used correctly. Jesse notices these changes in Michael's behavior. He becomes more focused and observant, often walking alone through different parts of the island while carefully examining the surroundings. Although he does not say it directly, she understands that he is preparing for the possibility that more enemies may arrive. The idea that the island could become a battleground frightens her, but at the same time she feels safer knowing that Michael is doing everything possible to protect them. Michael also begins creating simple but effective preparations using the natural resources around him. He marks hidden paths through the forest where he and Jesse can move quickly if they need to escape. He chooses several locations where they can hide safely if the island is searched again. At certain points along the coast, he establishes observation spots where he can watch the ocean without being easily noticed. These preparations are not meant to invite conflict, but they ensure that he will not be caught unprepared if another team arrives. The transformation of the island into a battlefield is not just physical. It also affects Michael emotionally. Every defensive step he takes reminds him of the life he once lived. The strategic thinking, the constant awareness, and the readiness for confrontation are habits he tried to leave behind when he chose isolation. Yet protecting Jesse requires him to bring those abilities back. The same skills that once served dangerous missions are now being used to defend someone innocent. Jesse also begins adapting to the situation in her own way. Instead of remaining afraid and helpless, she tries to learn from Michael. He teaches her how to stay quiet while moving through the forest and how to recognize safe areas where she can hide if something goes wrong. These lessons are simple but important, helping her feel less like a victim and more like someone who can survive alongside him. The the bond between them grows stronger as they prepare together. As days pass, the tension surrounding the island becomes almost visible. Even though no enemies have arrived yet, both of them can sense that something is coming. The quiet environment feels different now, as if the island itself is waiting for the next event. The sound of distant waves and the calls of seabirds no longer seem purely peaceful. Instead, they exist alongside an unspoken awareness that danger could appear at any moment. One evening, while standing on a cliff and watching the horizon, Michael notices a faint shape far across the water. It moves slowly but steadily, heading toward the island. From that distance, it is impossible to see clearly what it is, but his instincts immediately react. Boats do not usually come this close to such an isolated place without a reason. The sight confirms what he has been expecting all along. With that realization, the island's transformation becomes complete. What once served as a peaceful hiding place has now become a strategic ground where survival may depend on courage, preparation, and quick decisions. The calm life Michael once enjoyed there is gone, replaced by the reality that this remote piece of land may soon witness another confrontation. As the distant vessel continues moving closer, both Michael and Jesse know that the next battle for their safety may begin sooner than they hoped. As the situation around Michael, Mason, and Jesse grows more intense, the mystery surrounding the powerful organization chasing them slowly begins to unfold. Until now, the secret agency has remained mostly hidden, operating in the shadows and sending highly trained agents to capture Jesse without revealing their true purpose. For Michael, this secrecy is not surprising. During his past life in covert operations, he had encountered many organizations that functioned beyond the knowledge of ordinary people. These groups often claimed to work for national security or global stability, but the reality behind their missions was rarely simple. Michael begins analyzing everything he has observed since the first agents arrived on the island. Their equipment, their communication methods, and the way they conducted their search all suggest that they belong to a highly organized intelligence unit. These were not mercenaries or criminals acting on their own. They followed strict procedures, moved with discipline, and used technology that indicated strong financial and governmental support. This realization confirms Michael's suspicion that the agency behind them holds significant power. At the same time, Jessie's earlier confession about the information stored in her memory becomes more important. She had mentioned that the knowledge she carries could expose secrets that powerful people want to keep hidden. Michael begins to understand that the agency may not simply be trying to protect national interests. Instead, they may be trying to protect themselves. If Jessie truly holds information that could reveal their operations, their actions might be driven by fear rather than justice. One evening, while discussing the situation inside the shelter, Jessie finally reveals more details about what she overheard before escaping on the boat. She explains that the people she was traveling with were trying to deliver certain information to someone outside the agency's control. According to them, the organization responsible for chasing Jessie had been conducting secret activities that violated laws and ethical boundaries. These operations were meant to remain hidden from the public and even from many government officials. The information Jessie carries may contain evidence of these hidden missions. If the truth were to become public, it could damage the agency's reputation and expose the individuals responsible for those decisions. For an organization built on secrecy and authority, such exposure would be extremely dangerous. This explains why they are willing to send agents across the ocean and risk conflict just to retrieve the information. Jessie holds. Michael listens carefully as Jessie explains what little she knows. Although she does not fully understand the details, the pieces of the story begin to form a clear picture in Michael's mind. The secret agency is not simply protecting the world from threats. Instead, it may be protecting its own power and reputation. Over the years, some organizations within the intelligence world have crossed lines they were never meant to cross, believing that their actions are justified by the goals they serve. This revelation creates a difficult moral situation. On one hand, the agency claims to act for security and order. On the other hand, the information Jessie carries may reveal actions that harmed innocent people or manipulated events behind the scenes. Michael has seen similar situations before in his past. He remembers missions where the truth was hidden because it did not fit the official narrative. Those memories are part of the reason he eventually walked away from that world.
Understanding the truth behind the agency also helps Michael realize that their pursuit will not stop easily. If the information Jesse cries truly threaten their secrets, they will continue trying to recover it at any cost. Powerful organizations often believe that protecting their influence is more important than the lives affected by their action. This means the conflict between Michael, Jesse, and the agency may grow even larger. Despite the danger, Michael also understand that truth exposing the truth it would prevent belief. This means the conflict between Michael, Jesse, and the agency may grow even larger. Despite the danger, Michael also understands that exposing the truth could change many things. If the hidden operation often the agency were realized, it would prevent further abuse of power and bring accountability to people believed they were untouchable. Jesse may not have chosen these responsibilities, but the information she cries could come the key to revealing something important to the world. The truth behind the secret agency transforms the entire situation. What began as a simple ratio during a storms and how become part a much bigger struggle involving secrecy, power, and justice. Michael realized that protecting Jesse is no longer just about survival, it also about defending the truth that powerful forces want to bury. As this realization settles in, he now that their journey will not end quickly. The path ahead may involve in even greater risks, but it may also lead to the exposure of secrets that were never meant to see the light.